Welcome back to Inside the Philippines. If you're new here, this is the channel where we sit down with the men and women who came to these islands chasing something. Love, a fresh start, a softer place to grow old. And we let them tell you, in their own words, exactly how it went. The good and the bad. Mostly, if we're honest, the parts they wish somebody had warned them about. Today's story comes from a man named Bjorn. He's 71 years old, Norwegian, from a small island out past Ålesund on the west coast, where the weather comes in off the sea sideways and the winters are long. He spent 40 years as a roofer. 4 decades on other people's rooftops, in wind and sleet and cold that gets into the bones and never quite leaves. A hard man from a hard place is how he described himself to us. Proud, not the sort to ask for help. And then, late in his life, the ground went out from under him, the kind of loss that leaves a man staring at the ceiling at 3 in the morning wondering what it was all for. So he did what a lot of men do. He looked for somewhere warm, somewhere he thought life still worked the old way. We're not going to tell you what he found. That's his to tell. But I'll say this. It's a story about a fantasy a lot of men carry over here in their chest pocket, and what that fantasy can cost when you build your whole future on top of it. If you're watching, do us a favor. Drop a comment and tell us where you're watching from. We've got people all over the world in this little community, and it always amazes me. If you've got a story of your own, share it. Somebody out there needs to hear it. And if these stories mean something to you, hit like and subscribe, because that's the only reason we can keep making them. Quick word before we start. After sitting with so many of these stories on this channel, we finally put together a guide. The plain, practical stuff we've watched men learn the hard way. The questions to ask before the money moves, the paperwork, and the names to check on it. The things nearly every one of them told us they wish they'd asked at the very beginning. It's linked down in the description if you want it. No charge, no drama. That's all I'll say. Here's his story, in his own words. My name is Bjorn, and I should tell you first that I am not a man who talks. Ask anyone from home. 40 years I worked, and I think in all that time I said maybe 2 sentences about how I felt, and one of those was about my knee. So this, talking to a camera, to strangers, this is not natural for me. But I promised myself, if I ever climbed out of the hole I dug, I would tell it honestly. Because somebody warned me once, and I did not listen, and maybe you will be smarter than I was. Probably not. I was not smart, and I am supposed to be a sensible man. I come from a small place, an island called Godoya, out past Ålesund, where the road ends at a lighthouse, and there is nothing after that but the sea going all the way to Iceland. Maybe a few hundred people. Everyone knows your father and your father's father. Rain most of the year. The kind of cold that is wet, that sits on you. You do not complain about it. You put on another sweater, and you go up on the roof anyway, because the roof does not fix itself, and the customer is waiting. That was my life. Roofer. 40 years. My hands. Look at them. They don't close all the way anymore. I fell twice in my life and walked away both times, and I used to say God must have plans for me. God's plans. We will come back to that. My father was a roofer before me, and his father did the boats, and that is how it was there. You took the trade of the man in front of you, and you did it until your knees gave out. I was proud of it. I want to say that so you understand me. Slate, tin, the old turf roofs on the boathouses, I could do all of it. And in a place where it rains 200 days a year, a man who keeps the water out is worth something. People trusted me on their houses. That is a kind of love in the North, though we would never call it that. You do not say a warm word. You keep the man's roof tight, and he keeps your name good. And that is the whole of it. I thought that was how everything worked. Do the work, don't complain, and you will be all right. It is a good philosophy for a roof. It is a poor one for a life, as it turned out. I was married. Ingrid. 38 years we were together. We raised 2 children who are grown now and busy with their own lives up in Trondheim, and they call on the birthdays, which is more than some. It was not a great love, Ingrid and me. I will be honest, it was a working marriage. 2 people who split the wood and paid the loan and did not say much at dinner. I thought that was enough. I thought that was what marriage was. You show up, you don't leave. That is love where I come from. You stay. She did not stay. 3 years ago she sat me down at the kitchen table and told me she had been unhappy for a long time, that she wanted, and I remember the word, she wanted to feel alive before it was too late. 68 years old, and she wanted to feel alive. I did not even know what to say to that. There was another man, I found out later, a retired teacher from Molde, who took her to the theater and talked to her about books. Things I never did. I fixed the gutter. I paid the loan. I did not take her to the theater, no. The divorce in Norway is not like here. It is quick and it is fair, which is to say, it cut me in half like a fish. She got her share, which was right. I don't argue it. But her share was the house we built, and the little cabin by the water that my own father helped me raise, and after the lawyers and the split, what I had left at 70 years old was my pension. A thin one. We did not both work full lives. Mine was the money. And about $25,000 in the bank. In pesos, I would learn later, that is a little under 1,400,000. In my own money, kroner, maybe 270,000. Everything. My whole life's savings after 40 years on the roofs. That number. I want you to remember that number because you will watch it disappear. So there I was, 70 years old, alone in a rented flat in Ålesund with a view of a parking garage. My wife gone, my house gone, my cabin gone, and the cold coming again, the way it always comes. I got sick that first winter alone. Nothing serious, a chest thing. But I lay there for 2 weeks and nobody came, and nobody would have come. And that is the thing that broke something in me. Not the divorce, the empty flat. The realizing that I could die on that bed, and the neighbor would only notice by the smell. I am not telling you this for pity. I am telling you so you understand what kind of man does what I did. A lonely one, a proud one who will not say the word lonely. So he says instead, I am going to start fresh. That is the lie I told myself. Starting fresh, like a young man. 70 years old with bad hands, starting fresh. You should know what the days were like, or you will not understand the rest. I would wake at 5 out of 40 years of habit, and there was nothing to wake for. No roof waiting, no Ingrid banging the pots. I would make the coffee for one, which is a stupid small thing that can put a man on the floor, measuring coffee for one. I walked to the harbor some mornings and watched the fishing boats and the young fellows on them who did not know my name, because the men who knew my name were dead now or gone soft in homes. I ate dinner standing at the counter most nights, fish balls from the freezer, or bread. I stopped setting a table. When you stop setting a table for yourself, you have stopped something bigger. And I knew it. And I let it happen anyway. The television talked at me until I slept in the chair. That was the life I was so eager to escape that I gave a stranger everything I had. Keep that in your mind. A man will pay any price to not eat standing up at the counter one more night. Where did I get the idea of the Philippines? I will tell you, and you will laugh. It was another roofer, a younger fellow named Kjell, who had worked with me, and he had married a woman from Cebu and moved there, and he sent pictures. Sunshine. His wife smiling, cooking, looking after him like he was something precious. And Kjell said to me on the phone, "Björn, over here the women are still women. They still take care of a man. Not like home," he said. "Not like these modern ones who want to feel alive." And something in me, bitter and stupid and hurting, that something said, "Yes, yes, that is what I want. A woman the way women used to be. The way they were when I was young, before all of this. Somewhere warm where a man like me still means something. I know how that sounds now. I know exactly how it sounds. But I want you to sit with how good it sounded to me then, in that flat, in the dark, at 3 in the morning with the chest cough and nobody coming. It sounded like being saved. So I bought a cheap laptop, and I made an account on a website for meeting Filipino women. And I told myself I was just looking. I was not just looking. A drowning man is never just looking at the rope. I did not know anything. That is the truth of it. 70 years on this earth, and I walked into it like a boy of 16. But I am getting ahead of myself. The website was called Filipino Cupid, and I filled in my little profile with 2 fingers because I never learned to type properly. And I wrote something honest and sad, that I was a retired man from Norway looking for a serious woman. For real, not games. And I put up a photo Kjell's wife had helped me pick. One where I looked less like an old sack of cement than usual. The messages came fast. Too fast, I know that now. I know now that a new man on that site with gray hair and a Western name is like blood in the water. But then, God help me, then it felt like the whole world had suddenly noticed I was alive. 20 women in the first 2 days. 20. Me, who could not get his own wife to look up from her plate. Most of them I could tell were not serious, or were too young. 25-year-old girls calling me handsome. And even I, fool that I am, even I knew that was nonsense. I am not a vain man. I know what 70 looks like in the mirror. But there was one, Marif. She was 39, which felt more honest to me. A grown woman, not a girl. From a province called Iloilo, in the Middle Islands, a place I had never heard of. And her first message was not like the others. She did not call me handsome. She asked me about Norway. She asked, was it true it stays dark all winter? And how did people bear it? And did I have children? And were they good to me? She asked about me, like a person. Her English was careful and a little formal, which I liked, because my English is also careful and formal. And we were 2 careful people typing slowly to each other across the whole world. She told me she had a daughter, 14, named Jenny Lynn, and that the father was long gone, back when the girl was small. She told me she cooked in a small eatery and dreamed of one day having her own. She told me she went to church every Sunday, and that she believed God brings the right people at the right time. I did not believe in God's plans, not then. But I remember reading that and thinking, maybe there is a plan. Maybe 40 years on the roofs, and then Ingrid leaving. Maybe all of it was just the road that brought me here, to this careful woman asking me if I was cold. She sent me a photo of her cooking one evening, my morning, a pot of something on a little gas ring, her sleeve pushed up, and she wrote, "I wish I could cook for you, Papa. You are too thin, too thin." Ingrid used to say I ate like a horse, but this woman a world away had decided I was too thin and must be fed, and I sat in Ålesund, and something in my chest that had been clenched for 3 years let go a little. It is embarrassing to admit how small the thing was that undid me. A photo of a pot. A woman saying, "You are too thin." That was the first night I did not think about dying. I want you to understand what that is worth to a man. I would have paid anything for more nights like that. And in the end, I nearly did. We talked every day after that. Every single day. I would wake in the dark Norwegian morning, and there would be a message waiting. "Good morning, Papa. Did you sleep? Is it snowing?" And I would sit with my coffee and answer it slowly. And the flat did not feel so empty. She started to call me Papa, which where I come from would be strange. But she explained it is a term of respect and affection there for an older man you care about, and I confess I liked it. Nobody had ever treated my age like a thing to respect. At home, it was a thing to apologize for. Within a few weeks we were speaking on video, on the messenger, and there she was, a real face, a real kitchen behind her, a rooster crowing somewhere though it was the afternoon. She laughed and said, "The roosters here have no sense of time." She was not a model. I want to be clear, I was not fooled by some impossible beauty. She was an ordinary woman with a tired, kind face and a gap in her teeth when she smiled, and that is exactly why I trusted it. A trick, I thought, would be prettier. I think about that a lot now. How the ordinariness was the thing that got me. How I looked at that gap in her teeth and thought, this is real. This cannot be a lie. As if lies must always be beautiful. As if a plain, honest face cannot want your money too. But no, that is not fair, not entirely, and I promised to be honest. Because I do not think, even now, that she woke up one morning and decided to destroy an old Norwegian. It was not so simple as that. It was slower and sadder, and I was in it up to my neck before there was ever a single thing you could point at and call a crime. Let me tell you how it started with the money. Because it did not start big. It never starts big. The first time was nothing. 2 months in, she mentioned in passing, not even asking, that Jenny Lynn's school shoes had broken, and the new ones would cost, I remember, about 500 pesos. $9. She was not asking. She said it the way you mentioned the weather. And I sat in Ålesund with my pension and my $25,000, and I thought, $9. $9 to be the kind of man who buys a child shoes. What is $9? I sent it through the Gcash, which she taught me how to do. And the thank you I got, the photo of the girl in her new white shoes, the way Marife cried a little and said no man had ever helped her like this. For $9, I felt like a king, like a father, like somebody again. Do you see? Do you see how cheap the hook is? It is not the money. It is the feeling. They were not selling me a woman. They were selling me back my own usefulness, and I had been starving for it. And I would come to pay for that feeling at a rate you would not believe. After the shoes, it was easier. Everything after the first one is easier. A little for the electricity when it was cut. A little for medicine when Jenny Lynn had a fever. Small amounts, 500, 1,000 pesos, $18 here, 30 there. I kept a little book, out of habit. A roofer keeps his accounts. But I did not really look at the total. I did not want to. By the time I had been talking to Marife for half a year, I had sent, in these little kindnesses, somewhere near 120,000 pesos. Over $2,000, trickled out 500 at a time, so I never felt it leave. That is the discarte, the cleverness of it, and I do not even think it was all a plan. I think some of it was just a poor family and a soft old man and the natural flow of water downhill. But it was downhill. It was always downhill. And I was the top of the hill. And still, I had not even been there. Not once. I had given a woman over $2,000, and I had never stood in the same room as her. When I say it aloud like this, I want to slap my own face. But in my mind, it was not like that. In my mind, I was in love. Or in something. And I was going to go to her. It was only right that a serious man goes in person. So I booked the flight. A real cost. That near 10,000 kroner just to get to Manila, and then a little plane down to a place called Iloilo. And I told Marife I was coming, and she screamed on the video and woke the whole house. And I sat in my gray flat and laughed for the first time in 3 years. I told my son I was going on holiday. I did not tell him why. He would have said what you are thinking right now. And I did not want to hear it, because part of me already knew. The plane came down over Iloilo in the middle of the day, and the heat hit me on the airport steps like walking into a wall. I have never felt heat like that. I am a man built for cold. My shirt was through in 1 minute. And there, past the barrier, waving with both arms, was Marife, smaller than I imagined, in a yellow dress, with the daughter beside her holding a hand-drawn sign that said, "Welcome, Papa Björn." And I am not ashamed to tell you my eyes went hot. She took my arm like I was precious, fussed that I must be tired, must be hungry, must sit, and steered me to a tricycle. That is a motorcycle with a little sidecar, and how 3 of us and my suitcase fit in it I still do not know. And all the way into the city she held my hand and pointed at everything. "Look, Papa, that is our church. That is the market. That is where I work." Proud to show me. Proud to be seen with me. A gray old Kano dripping sweat. And she walked like she had won a prize. The city itself I could not make sense of, those first days. It was too much for a man from an island of 300 people. The noise never stopped, the tricycles all sounding their horns for no reason I could find, the karaoke starting in the afternoon and going till God knows when, some neighbor murdering an old love song over and over, and the roosters which crow at every hour, and not only the dawn. That was a lie somebody told me as a boy. The heat pressed on me like a wet blanket I could not take off. I sweated through everything I owned, and the smell of the place, diesel and frying garlic, and something sweet rotting, and the sea, all at once, everywhere. I did not like it. I will be honest, those first days I did not like it, and I looked at Marife and thought, she is the only thing here that makes sense to me. That is a dangerous thing. When one person becomes the only solid ground in a strange country, you will do anything not to lose that ground. I want to be fair to those first days, because they were real, whatever came after. She had rented for me a little room in a cheap place near the La Paz district, clean, with a fan, and she had put flowers in it. She cooked for me every day. This incredible food I had no name for, sinigang, the sour soup, and a fish grilled in the coals, and rice, always rice. There was a thing called batchoy from the market, a noodle soup with pork and a raw egg dropped in the broth, and she watched my face the first time I ate it, like it mattered to her more than anything, that I liked it. And I did like it, and she clapped her hands. She would not let me lift a finger. She washed my clothes by hand in a bucket, my clothes, and hung them on the line. And when I tried to help, she laughed and pushed me to a chair and said, "No, Papa, this is a woman's job. You rest." And there it was, the thing Kjell told me about, the thing I flew across the world for. A woman the way I imagined women used to be. Soft, attentive, unbothered by all that talk of feeling alive. She anticipated what I wanted before I knew it. She refilled my plate. She called me Papa in front of the neighbors, and they smiled and nodded like it was the most natural thing in the world for an old white man to be fussed over by a woman 30 years younger. I felt, for 2 weeks, like the luckiest fool alive. And that is the part one have to own, because nobody forced that feeling on me. I drank it down like a thirsty man. I did not ask why a healthy woman of 39 would want to wash the underpants of a man of 70. I did not want to ask. The answer was right there in front of me the whole time, cooking my fish. And I looked straight past it, because looking at it would have sent me home. Let me tell you about the eatery, because that is where the real money went. And that is where I stopped being a lonely man being helped, and became an investor being fleeced. Though at the time, I could not have told you the difference. It was Marifa's dream, she said, and I believed her. And I still think it was partly true. A carinderia, that is a small eatery, a few tables, home cooking sold by the plate to workers and jeepney drivers. She was cooking in someone else's, breaking her back for a wage of almost nothing, and she wanted her own. And I, the roofer, I understood that. A man wants to own his own roof, not work under another's. I respected it. She took me to see the place she dreamed of, a shuttered spot near the La Paz public market, the famous one where they make the bat choy, the noodle soup. Good foot traffic, she said. Always people, always hungry. She had it all worked out. The rent deposit, the second-hand refrigerator, the gas stove and the big pots, the tables and the plastic chairs, the little sign, the fee for the permits, which over there is its own adventure, the mayor's permit, and the health card, and I don't know what all. She had written the numbers on a piece of paper in her careful hand. The total came to about 380,000 pesos. I did the arithmetic in the tricycle on the way back, the way I would price a roof. Near $7,000. In my own money, 76,000 kroner. A serious amount. Not nothing. A real bite out of the 25,000 I had left in the world. And here is where you should have been in the room to grab my arm. Because I had a bad feeling. A small one. The kind you get on a roof when a plank flexes wrong under your boot. Something said, Björn, this business is in her country. In her name, under her people, and you cannot own it, and you cannot even own the land it sits on. A foreigner cannot own land here. I had read that much at least. If it goes wrong, you have nothing to hold. I said some of this to her, carefully, and she did not get angry. That is the thing. She got sad. She looked at the floor and said she understood. That of course a man must protect himself, that she was just a poor woman with a dream and she should not have asked. And she said, I remember it exactly. She said, Papa, I do not want your money. I want us. If you build this with me, it is because we are building a life, you and me and Jenny. And one day you will sit in that eatery, an old man, and I will bring you your coffee, and you will see it was worth it. A life. That word. She knew where to put the knife, and I do not even think she knew she was doing it. She was selling me the thing I flew there to buy. A life where I mattered, where an old man gets his coffee brought to him by a woman who calls him Papa. What is $7,000 against that? I had already decided. I had decided the moment she said we. So I gave it. Not all at once. That is not how it went. It went in pieces over a few weeks. The deposit first, then the refrigerator, then the stove, then the permits, which cost double what she first said. They always cost double. And I paid and paid, and told myself I was building a life. The eatery opened. We called it Jenny's, after the daughter. There was a little party, a blessing by the priest, Lechon, the roast pig, and karaoke so loud my ears rang. And half the barangay came and shook my hand and called me Papa. And I stood there sweating and happy, and did not notice that not one piece of paper anywhere in the whole enterprise had my name on it. Not one. The lease, her name. The permits, her name. The bank account it all ran through, her name. I found this out much later. That night I was too busy being happy to ask, and asking would have been rude, and I was a guest, and you do not check the paperwork at your own party. That is what I told myself. The truth is, I did not want to know, because knowing would have made me a fool, and I was not ready yet to be a fool. Her cousin was there that night, Rodel, a man about her age, quiet, good-looking, who moved around the eatery like he owned it, telling people where to sit, fixing the gas when it sputtered. I was told he was the cousin who would help run the place, since Marifi could not be there every hour, and I, obviously, could not run a Filipino eatery. It made sense. Everything made sense that night. I even liked him. I shook his hand and thanked him for looking after my Marif, and he smiled at me. This smile I did not understand until much later, and said, "Of course, Papa. Anything for family." I should have listened to the word family. In that place, it is the biggest word there is, and I was only ever on the outside edge of it, holding the wallet, and I could not hear it yet. I flew home to Norway after that first long visit because my tourist stamp was running out and my flat and my few things were still there. But my heart, whatever was left of it, stayed in Iloilo. And so did my money, flowing out now not in $9 dribbles, but in real amounts, because now there was a business to feed. And a business is a hungry mouth. There was a fiesta not long after the opening, the barangay fiesta, the Saints' Day, and I learned that morning what a fiesta costs the man they think is rich. Everyone cooks, everyone opens their house, and Jenny's was expected to feed half the street for free, for the honor of it, for the face of it. I paid for a pig, a whole lechon turning on the coals, and the drink, crates of the beer they call Red Horse, that is strong enough to knock a roofer down, and the rice for 50 people, and it was, all told, near 15,000 pesos in an afternoon, close to $300, gone in roast pork and karaoke. And I stood there with a plate, sweating, while men I had never met clapped my shoulder and called me Papa, and toasted the generous Kano, and I felt, again, that warm, stupid glow of being somebody. That is what they were really feeding me, not lechon. The glow. And I paid for the privilege of being fed my own vanity. That is the thing nobody tells you about a small eatery. It does not just take the startup money and then run. It needs feeding every week. The refrigerator broke, the second-hand one, of course it broke, and a new one was needed. 20,000 pesos. The rent went up. A better spot came free, and we should grab it. A second little stall in the market itself, another deposit. The stock, the rice, and the meat and the gas ran short at the end of every month, and there was always a message, Papa, just to get through to the weekend, and I sent it, and it added up in my little book to sums one stopped adding. And then it was the family. It was always going to be the family, I understand that now. The eatery made me part of them, or made them think of me as part of them, which is not the same as being family, but comes with all the bills. Marife's mother, whom everyone called Nane, took ill. Her gallbladder, the doctor said, needed surgery. And in that country there is no proper free hospital worth the name for people like them. You pay before they will cut. Cash on the table. 90,000 pesos they needed. Over $1,600. And the calls came. Marifi crying on the video. Her mother in pain. The family looking to me because who else? The Kano. The rich foreigner. I was not rich. I kept saying it into the phone. I am not rich. I am a roofer. And they nodded and cried. And I paid anyway. Because what am I going to do? Let the old woman die on the phone while I explain Norwegian pensions. I paid it. Of course I paid it. And Nane lived. And I am glad she lived. I want to say that. Clearly. That money did a good thing. But I could not help noticing, when I flew back down some months later, that the mother's house had a new roof. A good one. I am a roofer. I looked. And I wondered, quietly, in the part of my mind I kept locked, whether all 90,000 had really gone to the gallbladder. I did not ask. Saving face, they call it there. You do not accuse. The problem sits in the room, and everyone smiles around it, and it grows. And there was the girl. Jenny Lynn. I have to be honest about her, because she is the part that still hurts in a clean way, not a bitter one. She was a good child. Shy with me at first, then not shy, and she liked that I could fix things, and she would follow me around when I mended a hinge or the leaking tap, and ask me the Norwegian words for things, and I taught her tak for roof and hus for house, and Hun laughed at how they sounded. Her tuition came due each term, a private school because the public ones there are packed and poor, and it was 20,000 pesos a semester, $300, $400, and I paid it every time without a second's argument. And that money I do not regret. I hope she finished. I hope she is a nurse or a teacher now, and not doing what her mother did. Whatever else was a lie, I do not think a 14-year-old's arithmetic homework was a lie. And I was glad, for a while, to be the old man who paid for it and checked it. That was the fantasy at its most harmless. An old man helping a child with her sums. If it had only been that, I would call the whole thing money well spent. But it was never allowed to only be that. Then it was the brother, Rendell. A tricycle, a proper one, would let him earn, and also help the eatery with deliveries, they said. And it was only 130,000 pesos, over $2,000. And it was an investment, they said. It would pay back. Everything was an investment that would pay back. Nothing ever paid back. The tricycle I did glimpse once, and Rendell was using it to drive his friends around, not to deliver anything. But again, I did not ask. I was learning to not ask. It is a terrible skill, and I got good at it fast. I flew down a third time, and this is the visit I stayed longest, near 3 months, extending the tourist visa, which you can do, it costs, and you queue in the heat, but you can do it. And I started to talk about the future, about the 13A, the marriage visa, about maybe selling my last things in Norway and living there for good, and I started to talk about a house, because that had become the dream, you see. Not just the eatery, a house. On the family land out in Passi, an hour from the city, where Marifi was from, a little concrete house where I would grow old with my coffee brought to me. I could not own the land. I knew that now. I had read it 100 times. A foreigner cannot own land. But the land was the family's, and I would build on it. And love does not need a deed, I told myself. Love does not need a deed. Write that on my gravestone. What a stupid, stupid old man. The repairs and the building on that house came to 160,000 pesos before I was done. Near $3,000 poured into concrete on land I could never own. And I stood there in the heat watching local men mix cement by hand, and I felt, God forgive me, I felt like I was building something. Like the roofs I built for 40 years. I even climbed up and checked their roof work and fixed it myself. 71 years old up a bamboo ladder in the Philippine sun. And Marife shouted at me to come down, Papa, you will fall. And I laughed. I was happy. That is the cruelty of it. Right there at the edge of the cliff, I was happy. Let me add it for you, since I finally added it for myself. Sitting on a plastic chair with my little book, One Bad Night near the end. The little kindnesses, 120,000. The eatery, 380,000. The mother, 90,000. The brother's tricycle, 130,000. The second stall, and the endless restocking, and the broken refrigerator, near 250,000. The house on land I could not own, 160,000. And a river of top-ups and fiestas, and the daughter's tuition, and this and that. Another 120,000 at least. Add it. 1,250,000 pesos. Say it slow. Over $22,000. $250,000 kroner. And with the flights and the visas and the living, near enough the whole 25,000 I had walked in with. Everything Ingrid had left me. Everything 40 years on the roofs had put by. Gone into an eatery I did not own. A house I could not own. And a family that was not mine. And I did not even know yet that I had lost. I still thought I was building. That is the part one cannot forgive myself. The money was already gone, and I was still, in my heart, a happy man building a life. The fall had already started, and I had not yet felt the ground. The cracks, when they came, were small at first. They are always small first. A man learns that on roofs, too. The leak you see on the ceiling is never where the hole is. The first thing was Rodel, the cousin. He was always there. Every time I came, there he was, at the eatery early, at the eatery late, at family dinners in the good seat. And once, near the end of that long third visit, I woke in the night in the little house in Passi, and Marife was not beside me, and I heard her voice low outside in the dark, on the phone, laughing in a way she never laughed with me. Easy, young, a whole other woman. And I heard, I am nearly sure I heard, the name Rodel. And when I asked in the morning, she said it was her cousin about the eatery order. And she said it so smooth and quick that a wiser man would have gone cold. I told myself it was the cousin, the eatery order. I had trained myself so well by then to not ask that I could explain away the smell of my own house burning. Then the money at the eatery stopped making sense. I am not a businessman, but I am not a child with numbers. 40 years pricing roofs. I know when a job that should turn a profit keeps coming to me with its hand out. The eatery was busy. I sat in it. I saw the people, the plates going out, the pesos going in the drawer. And yet, every single month there was a shortfall, a reason, a repair, a supplier who cheated us, a slow week, and every month the message, Papa, just a little to get through. A place that full should not bleed like that. Somebody was carrying money out the back door of Jenny's while I fed it through the front, and I did not want to see who, because I already half knew, and knowing meant the end of everything. And I was tired. That is a thing I have not said. 3 months in that heat at 71 had worn me thin. My hands hurt worse in the humidity, not better, which surprised me. I was sleeping badly. And I started just a little to be a difficult old man, to ask, to say, where did the 20,000 go, show me? And the moment I started to ask, the temperature of the whole thing changed. The fussing stopped. The coffee came slower. Marif got a tightness around her mouth I had not seen. And Rodel started looking at me differently, less papa, more obstacle. I went home to Norway once more to sort my affairs, because I had truly decided now I would sell my last things, the little I had, and move for good, marriage, the whole thing. And it was there, back in the gray flat with the parking garage view half a world away, that the money finally ran out. Not slowed, ran out. I looked at my bank account one morning with my coffee, and there was, after everything, a little over $1,000 left in the world, plus my thin pension coming each month, and nothing else behind it. Nothing. No house, no cabin, no savings. $1,000 and a pension, and an eatery in another woman's name 8,000 miles away. And that same week, the requests got bigger, not smaller. Now it was $50,000 for this, $80,000 for that, an emergency with the market stall, and when I said, and my voice shook when I said it, on the video, at 3 in the morning Norway time, when I said, Marif, I cannot, there is no more, it is gone, all of it, I have nothing left. She went quiet. And in that quiet I heard the whole thing, everything I had not let myself hear for 2 years, arriving at once. The fight happened on the video call. 3 in the morning my time, and I will never forget it, because it is the night the truth came out. Not from any phone I found, not from any letter, but from her own mouth, thrown at me in anger, which somehow is worse. It started because I said no. That was all. The first no in 2 years. She had asked for money for the stall, and I said, Truly, there is nothing, Marif. I have shown you. Look, there is nothing left. I gave it all. And I asked her, gently. I thought I asked it gently. I asked, so what happens to us now, if there is no more money? Will you still? And I could not even finish it. Will you still want me? And she laughed. Not the young, easy laugh from the dark garden. A hard one. And she said, and I am translating from the way she said it, she said, You, old men, you come here and you think, because you buy some tables and some rice, you have bought a wife? You think a woman my age wants an old man in her bed? I did this for my family, Björn, my mother, my daughter, my... And she stopped. But I heard the shape of the word she did not say, and I said it for her. Rodel. And she did not deny it. She did not even try. She said, He is nothing to you. You have your pension. You had a good life. We have nothing. We had nothing before you, and we will have nothing after you, and you want to be loved on top of it? You want to be loved on top of it. She said that to me. And the terrible thing, the thing that has kept me up more nights than the money, is that she was not entirely wrong. I did want that. I wanted to be loved on top of everything I gave, and I had used my money to buy the feeling of it, and she had let me. And somewhere under her anger was 2 years of pretending to love an old foreigner so her family could eat, and her mother could be cut open, and her real man, Rodel, could drive his friends around in a tricycle I bought. She was cruel that night, but she was also, I think, just very tired of me. Tired of being fussed over by a man she did not want, for money that was running out. Rodel had been there the whole time, since before me, probably. The eatery was theirs, in her name, run by him, and I had built it and stocked it and never owned one plate of it. The house in Passy, on their land, was theirs, and I had poured my last concrete into it and could never set foot in it as anything but a guest they now wished would leave. The mother's roof, that good new roof I had noticed, mine. All of it. Mine. And none of it. Mine. That is the trick of this country for a foolish man. You can pay for everything and own nothing, and the law will shrug at you, because you knew, you always knew, a foreigner cannot own the land. I did not shout back. That surprised me. I thought I would shout. 40 years I held things in, and I held this in too. I just looked at her face on the little screen, this ordinary, tired face with the gap in the teeth that I had trusted precisely because it was ordinary. And I said, in the end, only one thing. I said, I hope the eatery does well, Marif. I hope Jenny finishes school. And then I hung up the video, and I sat in the dark of the Norwegian morning, and I did not cry, which somehow was worse than crying. I never spoke to her again. She sent a few messages after, when perhaps she realized the money was truly finished. Softer ones. Papa, are you okay? God has a plan. Come back and we talk. But I could hear the arithmetic under them now. I had learned that language too well, and I did not answer. There was nothing to answer with anyway. My wallet was empty, and that was the only part of me she had ever really been writing to. So, here is where I am, since you have been kind enough to listen to an old fool this long. I am 71 years old. I live in the same rented flat in Ålesund with the view of the parking garage. I have my pension, my thin pension, a little over $1,000 a month, 11,000 kroner, and after the rent and the heat and the food, it does not leave much, and there is nothing behind it. No savings, no cushion. At my age, you are supposed to have a cushion. I built roofs for 40 years to have a cushion, and I gave it all to an eatery called Jenny's in the La Paz district of Iloilo City that I will never see again and never owned for one single day. My son found out. Of course he found out, when I could not lend him a small amount for his own thing and had to tell him why. He was not cruel about it. That was almost the hardest part. He was gentle, the way you are gentle with someone who is a bit broken now, and I saw in his face that I had become, at 71, a man his children must worry about. A man who did a stupid thing with his money and his heart. I, who was always the sensible one, the one who stayed. Do I hate her? People ask me that, the few I have told. And no, I have tried to, and I cannot. And I think that is important to say on this channel because I do not want a man watching this to walk away hating a whole country of people. Marife was poor in a way I, even divorced and gutted, have never once been poor. She had a daughter and a sick mother and a man she actually loved, and no way in the world to keep them all fed. And a rich old foreigner fell out of the sky, offering to pay for all of it, asking only that she pretend to love him. I do not think she is a good woman, but I built the trap as much as she did. I flew across the world carrying a fantasy in my chest, that somewhere there were still women the way women used to be, soft and grateful and glad to serve an old man. And she simply became that fantasy, because I was paying, and I never once stopped to ask what it cost her to hold that shape, or what it would cost me. That is the thing the title of this whole business gets wrong, the thing men like me tell each other. The women there still do this, still do that, still take care of a man the old way. Maybe, but it is not because they are from some better, simpler time. It is because they are poor, and you are the way out, and the tenderness you are buying is the hardest work in the world, and the bill comes due. I mistook someone's survival for someone's love. That is my whole story, in one sentence. I mistook someone's survival for love, and I paid 250,000 kroner for the lesson, and I am too old now to earn it back. If you are a lonely old man watching this in a cold flat somewhere with a cough, and nobody coming, and I know you are out there, because I was you, Then hear me. The loneliness is real, and I will not tell you it is not. But you cannot wire it away 500 pesos at a time. The empty flat comes with you on the plane. Ask the questions. Whose name is on the paper? Whose name is on the land? Who is the man who is always there? Ask them out loud, even when it is rude, especially when it is rude. And if the coffee comes slower after you ask, then you have your answer, and it was cheaper than mine. That is all. That is everything I have. Thank you for letting an old roofer talk. That was Björn. We want to thank him for that, for sitting down with us and telling it plainly, sparing himself nothing, which is harder than it looks. It's a hard thing to hand a stranger the worst decision of your life and say, "Here, learn from it." And there's a lot to learn from it. But I want to sit for a second on the thing he said near the end, because it's the truest thing anyone said on this channel in a long while. He said he mistook someone's survival for love. There's no villain in that sentence. Not really. There's a poor family doing what poor families do, and there's a lonely man who flew halfway around the world carrying a fantasy about how women used to be, and set it down on top of somebody's hardship, and called it a home. Both of those things can be true at once. That's usually how these stories go. Not a monster and a victim, but two kinds of need that should never have met over a wire. So if you're carrying that same fantasy, that somewhere out there is a simpler kind of woman who'll make you feel like a young man again, do yourself the favor Björn couldn't. Slow down. Keep your name on your own money. Check the paperwork, all of it, before the concrete's poured, not after. And ask yourself, honestly, what you're really trying to buy, because it's usually not a woman at all. It's the feeling of mattering to someone. And that, my friends, is the one thing on this earth you cannot wire through Gcash. Take care of yourselves out there. Look out for the lonely men in your life. Sometimes a phone call home is the thing that keeps a man off that website in the first place. We'll see you on the next one. This has been Inside the Philippines.